Hi everyone, and welcome to another piece discussion video, this time focused on the piece He's Waiting from the series 21st Century Royalty. This series examines those individuals and those qualities that we admire or aspire to be in the 21st century. That is to say, those who place themselves in positions of fame and celebrity, who are put there in those positions, or what befalls those who are in those positions. For a more thorough and comprehensive look at the series, you'll find a series overview linked in the description of this video down below. To start, let's consider the title, He's Waiting. This is obviously a bit of a cheeky, anticipatory phrase. It's suggestive of licentious behavior, constantly hinting at the obvious. And that obvious is a sort of sexual undertone. There's a lot of promiscuity that's baked into this piece, and it's something that we will examine once we start discussing the concepts as well. The idea with He's Waiting is sort of waiting for your call, waiting for your action, a tease or an invitation, so to speak. With regards to the composition and color palette, I wanted to embrace a very bombastic sentiment, something within which the viewer would get lost. And I was inspired to create something that was a culmination of perhaps a TV commercial and a billboard ad, that they shared that sort of sentiment back and forth with just a lot of maximist iconography. I like to describe this compositional approach as a sort of dynamic web of little movements, nods, cheeky suggestions. It's also much more controlled as the fourth iteration in the 21st Century series than the preceding three, and this is something that would characterize the direction for the series moving forward. A lot of the symbols, a lot of the forms are rendered much more honestly and much more directly, which again is more controlled than we've seen in previous iterations up to this point. The figure is in a very suggestive posture, especially considering it's removing one's clothes or in advance of the viewer. And he has those puckered lips and sort of a duck face look, if you will, to again heighten the sense of sexual tension. The color palette in general is meant to evoke a playfulness and glitzy quality by way of introducing violet and hot pink. These two hues would become mainstays for the series moving forward, but this was where I first introduced them. Violet carries a natural sort of royal quality and throughout history has been depicted as being symbolic of royal authority. And then hot pink obviously has a bouncy and playful quality. I found that the juxtaposition of the cerulean blues, the violet and the hot pink really created a sort of bubblegum aesthetic that I have yet to sort of revisit fully in the 21st Century Royalty series at the time of this recording, but would really like to in the future. Now moving into the conceptual identity. Again, there is a lot of promiscuity baked in this piece, and the focus really is on the hypersexualization of culture in the 21st century that still remains lightly veiled for the sake of justification. It's this idea that everything is sort of teasing the notion and pushing the boundaries to become as implicit as possible, while on the surface remaining as proper as need be in order to insist that nothing is really going on. It's partly for the sake of preservation in order to get away with it, and I think it's also in an attempt to normalize sexual behavior. It's attempting to justify its usage as a broken means of fulfillment. The point of this piece is to highlight that I believe this is something that has become very characteristic of the 21st century era and of our modern times, especially when it comes to the internet and it comes to social media. The idea is that sex as a tool for escape is done behind closed doors with this hush-hush sentimentality that we've seen for the past several decades. My ultimate goal with this piece was to elucidate the problem within the culture, that of seeking fulfillment through sexual acts, and then trying to normalize those sexual acts in order to continue to utilize them for gratification and for that momentary fulfillment, while not actually recognizing the real heart of the issue. In the modern era, we've become accustomed to utilizing sex as a tool to try and satisfy our deeper longings when it's always, again, nothing more than instant gratification, and can become very destructive and problematic when abused in that regard. Now moving into the references made in this piece, at the top right corner, "Maybe she's born with it," is a reference to the Maybelline makeup quote. Down the lower left, in front of the figure, the 1-800-HOT was an actual call-in line from a 90s commercial that I found in research. When I found this actual screenshot, I genuinely thought it was hilarious and added to that sort of bombastic quality and ridiculousness that I wanted to embrace in this piece as well. Come a little closer in the bottom right corner is a reference to a Bleacher song called Roller Coaster. This is a bit of a twofold reference. I deliberately placed the smirk emoji next to this in order to evoke that sort of sexual connotation, to heighten the idea that maybe there is a connotation there that's meant to be sexual, but in reality that may not be true. Simultaneously, this song was one that was really inspiring me at the time of this piece's production in 2019, and so not only did it seem fitting, but it was also emotionally very prominent for me. The left design with the stars and dreamboat coming from the figure was inspiration taken from a mid-20th century burlesque ad that I found in research. It really seemed to point to the period of our history when I believe these sexual acts and the normalization of this was becoming more prevalent in the culture, which was around the mid-20th century here in the United States. And so I wanted to take this piece back and evoke that sort of retro aesthetic to a degree. I also found that early burlesque ads were very much of this kind, where it was incredibly suggestive while still trying to be as proper as possible in order to place those flyers and make them as public as they possibly could. This mid-20th century aesthetic continues further with the phone in the ring on the right side, where it's obviously a corded phone and a bit of a more old-fashioned styling with the lettering, and likewise with the sign next to the figure, deliberately meant to evoke that sort of retro diner aesthetic. Again, embracing this aesthetic is really an attempt to put a historical context on this piece, recognizing that it's really been since post-World War II here in the United States that this boom in utilizing sexual activity and normalizing its usage and behavior as a means of gratification has become much more dominant in the culture. The emojis in this piece were contemporaneous with the piece's production, so the iOS I was utilizing in 2019 while I was producing this piece. 18 plus, appearing again with a Mac OS 9 display window, is in the bottom corner, slightly to the left. This, as mentioned in No Filter, is a nod to a bit of an anachronism, but at the same time, it's an aesthetic that really inspired me, and so it has that twofold sentiment. There is some sentimentality baked into it, while also just adding to a bit of the ridiculousness of this piece. I think I will stop there for now. This is by no means meant to be an exhaustive look at this piece, but I do hope it offers you a deeper window, that you may have a deeper connection understanding of the piece in general. Please share this video with anybody else who might find it worthwhile, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.